Our next presenter is Dr. Kay Payne. For more than 3 decades, Dr. Payne has been recognized as a scholar and pioneer in linguistics, thank you, and speech-language pathology. She is a highly sought speaker and presenter on child development and disorders. A graduate professor at Howard University for the past 19 years, she instructs courses on multicultural issues and research. Dr. Payne is internationally renowned, having a unique specialization in social linguistics and cultural anthropology. She is twice a Fulbright Fellow in Egypt and India. Wow, that's dynamic. Her international interests have also led her to Russia, the Ukraine, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, France, Italy, Guam, Namibia, Brazil, Australia, and New Zealand, Ghana, Spain, and Morocco. In 1993, she was named Fellow of the American Speech Language Hearing Association. Dr. Payne has also received the ASHA Certificate of Recognition for Special Contributions in Multicultural Affairs and was named ASHA Diversity Champion. We are so honored and thankful to have Dr. Payne with us this afternoon to present on Gullah culture. Thank you. Did you want the podium?
No, if this is okay.
Okay.
If you can get the shot in with me, I can do it.
Okay.
I just need to have some water in my hand.
Sure.
While I talk.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I was actually quite honored to be invited to do this. Gullah is something that is near and dear to my heart. And I've led my students on several excursions. I've been on many excursions myself, and been on several, led students on excursions to Gullah country. So that's what I want to talk about today, and I'm excited that you all are here and that you're interested in something that I'm interested in. Is there a clicker for the?
I forgot about that. I'll advance it.
Okay. Okay, first I want to start with kind of an overview of what is Gullah. Gullah is more than just this list here, but these are some of the things that I will talk about today in our discussion. First of all, the people, the language which is very rich and very interesting, and since language is my area of expertise, I do a lot with language, and the excursions that I've gone on with students have been mostly to look at the language, and it's something that's of interest to me because the language is actually dying out, and so I certainly welcome any opportunity to talk about the language anywhere that I can. Certainly the history, art, celebration, and spirituality. Now I brought a couple of pieces here of art that you can take a glance at. Gosh, when you think about the art of the Gullah Islands, it's much more than I can ever present in the time that I'm given today. But we'll spend a little bit of time thinking about the art and spend a great deal of time talking about the language and the art and celebrations and the spirituality of the people, which really distinguishes them in a way unlike any other, I think, culture of the United States. First of all, let's talk about the people.
I'm sorry, they're doing the instruction.
Oh, no problem at all. The people, as you can see, the Gullah people are no different from us. They are African Americans. And on one of the excursions that I went on, we had been there 2 or 3 days, and one of the people on the tour said, well, when are we going to see the Gullah people? Who are the Gullah people? And actually they are us. They are African Americans. But these are people who have preserved, to a very great extent, their African heritage. It's in their language, it's in their culture, and what they were seeing is that they really look no different from normal run-of-the-mill African Americans that you see walking the street today. But it's their sense of history and culture and the fact that they preserve that. which makes them a distinctive population. And the fact that their culture, which is actually a tie to African culture, has survived so long in the United States, whereas we, as African Americans on the U.S. mainland, have done a lot of acculturation and cultural mixing as a people. They have done less than that. Although I think today they could be considered as what we call bicultural, because they have their preserved Gullah culture and they have their African American culture. So you won't really, you probably met Gullah people, you've probably seen them in Washington, D.C., just not to know that unless you hear them talk and they decide to speak their Gullah language, and or if they tell you that they are their Gullah descent. When I was growing up, and I grew up in North Carolina, we referred to a certain group of people as Geeches. Geeche, you will have heard the word Geeches. I didn't hear the word Gullah until I was much older. And the word Gullah, as they say, may come from Angola, from the African word for the country of Angola. And it down through the generations of language change just became shortened to Gullah, and then what we know now as Gullah. And so I'll talk about the history of the people in just a moment. So these are typical Gullah people. You'll see that they are not different, not very different, but they may be more, because of less cultural mixing, they may be more close to their African heritage than we are. Let's talk a little bit about the history and geography so that you get a sense, again, of who the people are and what distinguishes this culture from the rest of the African American culture. As you see, and in the map on the left, the red area shows the area off the coast of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. So right off the coast of these states, there are many, many what we call barrier islands. And I've been to several of them. Right now, today, there are lots of resorts there. So people who love to play golf will go down to Kiowa Island, or they will go to Hilton Head. You might have heard of Hilton Head Island. There are many, many others. There may be at least 100 other islands. Not all are inhabited, but these are known as the Gullah Islands. A little bit about their history. The Gullah people were specially selected during the slave trade. They were selected to come to these islands specifically from the coast of Africa, because they knew how to grow rice. And these islands were warm all year round, and they were a perfect agricultural site for growing rice. And so these particular people, the Gullah people, were specially selected for their skill in growing rice, and from the areas where they were brought to the United States from, mostly Angola and Sierra Leone. And so that's another distinction of the Gullah people, their heritage, their specific heritage, and their skillfulness as rice growers that makes them a little bit, gives them a bit more distinction than African Americans. Most of them were brought to the port of Charleston, South Carolina, and that from there they were sent to these various islands, and for many, many years they were the rice growers on those islands. What's interesting about the Gullah Islands is that there was no connection between the United States and these islands for many, many years, up until probably sometime in the 1960s. In order to get back to the mainland, to these coastal cities of Charleston and Savannah, you would have to take a ferry, okay? Or in modern days, you could. I know that today you can fly to some of the islands, but for the most part, there was no bridge. So there wasn't a lot of cultural mix. So as you can see, they were pretty much isolated on the islands where they grew up. And so that helped to preserve their culture and preserve their language. And so that's why today they have this unique culture that's been preserved. And it was a very unique African culture and a very a distinctive African nature within the culture. So that's when we identify the Gullah people, we're really identifying those people who have that long-standing connection to their African heritage. Just to turn to a little bit of the artistry, basket making is one of the big components of art there. You can see in the upper right-hand corner some of the an old picture of some of the perhaps slave people who were weaving these baskets. This kind of basket weaving, you might have seen it here, but anytime you go to Charleston or Savannah, you can buy these in the market, and they're very expensive because they're still being handmade. You can pay upwards of $200 for a small basket. So, and the larger that they get, the higher the price. And this particular style of basket weaving actually was brought with the Gullah people from the coast of Africa, where they originated. And back about maybe 25 years ago, there was a delegation from St. Helens Island off the coast of South Carolina, and several of the older generation went back to their homeland in Africa. And what they found was that they were making the same kind of baskets in Africa that they were making in South Carolina. And so they were fascinated to know that this was a part of the culture that had been handed down and a skill that had been handed down and preserved for many, many years. So the artistry. You will also find, and I brought at least two of my tiles that I collected on my excursions to the Gullah Islands. Hopefully we'll get a chance to look at some of the art. I'll go back to this, but while we're on the topic of art, you'll get a chance to see the art, and this is the canvas art. The artists use a number of different media for their paintings, and what you'll notice basically is just the flow. First of all, you'll notice the vivid colors, okay, and you'll notice just the flow. It seems to draw you into the picture and involve you in what's being experienced in the art. And generally, you'll see with the flow, you'll see things moving from the left side of the page to the right. And so, like with the dancers, you can just feel them, and you go in and you just flow with them. And lots and lots of artistry involving women as well as the landscape. And again, with all of the very nice colors, and much of the artistry will also have an air of spirituality, and that's something that we'll come back to in just a moment. The top photo also shows the art of quilt making. Quilt making is very big among the Gullah people, the older generation. It too is something that is dying out. We know about that because many older African Americans still today will create quilts. And quilts, within these quilts, they weave in a story, and it might be a story of their family. For example, they may weave in a corner which might be someone's baby clothes. Okay, and as they grow, you will see other patchwork patches of something that symbolizes that person, and something that actually symbolizes the family, tells a story of the family, who they were, and some of the things that they might have cherished as they were growing. So quilting is certainly a big part of the artistry. Let's go back now and talk about the foods. Here you see the foods, and that just makes me hungry. You know, the food is wonderful. Of course, you'll find a lot of seafood because they're island people. A lot of what they do is catching local fish and local crayfish and crabs and shrimp, and they will mix this into the foods. And of course, since they came over with the skill of growing rice, much of their food still uses a rice mixture, so you'll get a kind of a gumbo mixture of seafoods and different seafoods, sometimes one, sometimes different, along with rice, and that will be made into a kind of a rice mixture. You'll also see fresh grown vegetables. Most of what you'll find there was probably grown locally, and the food is absolutely marvelous. If you ever get a chance to go there, try to get invited to someone's home, and they will show you such wonderful Southern hospitality, and they'll feed you humongous plates of the best food that you ever wanted to taste. And one of the big foods also is shrimp and grits. You can find shrimp and grits together on some menus here in Washington, D.C. You'll love it.
So the shrimp and grits come from?
Yeah, it's a big favorite. Whether it comes there, perhaps it did. I can't say that it absolutely originated among the people, but certainly it is a big favorite there, and in every restaurant there you'll get a chance to try shrimp and grits. Here are some of the celebrations, and celebrations are important because, as I mentioned to you earlier, preserving their language and culture is very big among the Gullah people, and every year at least the islands every island will probably have some kind of Gullah celebration, and what it is a street. It's a street fair. The people don't necessarily dress in the costumes that you'll see, because the costumes will actually reflect their African heritage. So they may wear a geeche, or they may wear long dresses. They may even go back as far as dressing with regard to their slave heritage. But that's not typical everyday dress. Everyday dress will be typical United States American jeans and t-shirts and sneakers, because it's hot there, it's warm there most of the year, and so you'll when they have their celebrations, though, they will dress in celebration of their heritage. Lots of music, and you'll get an opportunity to hear some of the music shortly, and many of the crafts in the bottom left-hand corner you can see. These are pottery crafts and baskets that are laid out that you will have a chance to participate in. The lady in the large photo is a storyteller, And storytelling is a rich part of their heritage. They love to tell stories, and they manufacture stories. It's kind of like gossip. It'll include some of the characters that they know, and they'll weave a tale around some event. But they'll make it so colorful that you just really want more and more. So storytelling and telling their heritage is a very important component of the culture and their celebrations. So she's telling a story to people who are sitting around, and on the music event that I'll play, I'll also let you listen to a Gullah story. Spirituality is a very, very important component of Gullah culture. They are Christians, but they're Christians with a real deep spiritual connection, almost to, there are lots and lots of superstitions. And they also go kind of beyond traditional Christianity in combining their African spiritual beliefs with Christianity, the way many other cultures that you might have heard the speaker in Puerto Rico talk about the spirituality of the people there, and how that is kind of a connection with their African heritage. Same with Gullah. But if you ever get a chance, there are many movies that you can Google and watch on Gullah people that are almost it's superstitious, but kind of otherworldly, ghostly tales. Okay, lots and lots of ghostly tales. And the last time that I was there, and many of them may not be true. They may have no grounding in reality, but it's so interesting to hear. The last time that I was there, we went to kind of a church like this to visit with a speaker. And she told us a story about her life, and she told us about how she had died and been resurrected 3 times. So this may or may not have any, grounding in reality, but she wove a tale in such a way that we were so engrossed in it. And we were a little bit suspicious when we came out, though, while she was telling us a tale while we were in the room with her. We were totally engrossed, and when we came out, we were surprised to find that we'd been totally taken, because really what she wanted to do was to sell us a little bottle of mineral oil that she called something, and she would say, well, you can anoint yourself with this, and it causes healing and all that kind of thing. And we were thinking, oh, we were taken again. But it's all part of the culture, and you just get, if you ever have a chance, it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. So here you'll see, hopefully, I don't know if it's very clear, but a baptism. Many baptisms are done inside churches now, because churches are modern. There is a lot of modernization going on the islands. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, many of the islands are being taken over by white corporations, and they're turning them into golf courses. So the people are being moved, and some of the people don't mind giving up their culture, and they move to the mainland. And so that's part of what we need to work toward in preserving the culture and the language. But you can see the upper right corner, this is a praise house. This is like a little one-room church, and you can still go in there to this day. And it is the same kind of praise house that was used during slavery times. And during those times, the people were not allowed to worship with the white congregations, so they were allowed to have their praise houses, which were way back in the woods, and they can go in there and whip up some songs and whip up a sermon and get, very much into the spirit of things. And so the praise house, the outdoor baptisms may be done, but mostly symbolic today, rather than just symbolic in recording and continuing the tradition. But most churches will have a baptismal pool. They're modern churches, and you'll see, many of the churches just really have their own kind of flavor. A small church and very community-oriented community where people can come together and celebrate their heritage. So the spirituality is very deep. We talked about the art. Now I want to move into the language of the Gullah people. Now there are many websites that you can go to. Just Google Gullah Language if you want to hear more Gullah Language. But this is something I wanted to play for you in order to so that you get a sense of the flavor of the culture and one of the stories that is told, as well as listening to some of the music and just enjoying. So if you can click that, we should be able to hear it through the speaker. You can follow along with the handout that's provided for you.
Can you hear it?
Very slightly, if you can.
I think it's up all the way. Oh, sorry.
If you can bring that, or if we can use this, someone have a computer with a CD player? Do you have a CD? Not ashamed of who they are. They embrace their slave heritage because that's their tie to Africa, and and this is a very popular. Marlena Smalls is a very popular singer and leader on St. Helena's Island, off the coast of South Carolina, and I believe she's a music teacher in the Charleston schools.
It's coming. I have a very old laptop, so it's coming in there.
It's a very old disc also. Time.
Thank you.
And I'm going to end on this once we listen to the music and the CD. I'm going to end on that. But as I mentioned to you, the Gullah language is very distinctive. It's part of something of their deep heritage. It has a connection to African language. I mentioned earlier about a delegation of older people who went from St. Helena's Island over to Angola, and what they were, another part of their trip, they were astounded to find out that they spoke the same language. They could understand, the people in Angola could understand Gullah language. And many of the words and expressions that came from, that the Gullah people maintain to this day, actually were in the language of the people in Sierra Leone. That language is called Creole, K-R-I-O, and that word actually comes from the word Creole, which means mixture. And so what really happened with the mixing of languages was that on the continent of Africa, the slave traders had to have a language as a medium for doing business. And so they created a language. It was a language that was a mixture of English, African languages, and other European language groups that they had to do business with. So there was Portuguese, French, Spanish, and so the Creole actually was a mixture of all of these. So the language of Gullah right now, we consider it to be actually a Creole language with its basis in many European languages and African languages. So here are some of the words that you can see. The word, you may be surprised to know that some of these origins were in African languages that we think they're English words today, but their origin was in African language, such as bad meaning good. Okay, teenagers thought they made that up. Came from Mandingo language. To badmouth someone, okay, chick, Wolof language, that just kills me, just slays me, from Wolof, from Mandingo. And even the word tote, okay, tote, you tote something on your head, comes from West African language. So, and even give me some skin comes from Temne language, African language. So many, what has happened in the process is that many of the words from African languages were brought to the United States, and through our cultural mixing, okay, they were actually became a part of the language that we speak today. Are we ready?
No. Can I, when you're done with the slides, can I pop it in?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
When
so
I do
just
that?
let me know when, and then.
Okay. Do you need the microphone here?
I will for the music. I'll bring the computer up there.
I see. Okay. Here are some other African words in standard English. Yes, you had a question a while ago.
Yeah, quick question. So, is it like the translation into English or the actual word, the sound, the intonation?
In some cases, it is the actual word. Banana is not an is not an English word. It's the real name for the fruit. Banana, they would call it. But we've anglicized that to banana. So adobe is a real word. And most of these will be real actual words that were African, part of the African language. And
as far as like bad mouth, chick, are those like, what about those?
I think so. I think that those were probably, they haven't been translated at all. Okay, they were part of the African language. Because there's no real relationship between a chick, when you think that's a nice looking chick, and a real chicken. We do that in our minds, but there's not a relationship. So it doesn't have to be translated to the English word chicken. And so that was the actual African word for that. Some of the syntax, and you'll be surprised to know that some of the language spoken by black people here in DC still has origins in African languages. Many people will try to tell you that it's just bad English, it's just broken English, but really it has a historical origin in African language. And most of this linguistic work was done by a scholar by the name of, the original scholar was by the name of Lorenzo Turner. whenever you go to the Gullah Islands, you'll hear the revered name of Lorenzo Turner. He was a Gullah person who got his PhD degree from the University of Michigan, and he was the first to actually go back to Africa and to trace the fact that these words and these expressions were an influence of African languages on English.
We're
Yeah,
okay
but-
with the music now.
I was gonna say, he had a wonderful exhibit for the longest time at the
At a costume museum,
I have a
absolutely.
poster from there. Still, it just reminded me, there's something on there that says, I guess to be quiet was tie your mouth or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So if we're ready, we can listen to the music now. This is actually my last slide before discussion and questions. We may have time to listen to a couple. You can follow on your handout.
Around the late 1600s, the West African arrived.
Sounded good.
It did. It's not your machine.
Around the late 1600s, the West African arrived on the southeastern coast of the United States, inhabiting approximately 1,000 sea and barrier islands as far north as Wilmington, North Carolina, southward to Jacksonville, Florida, bringing with them a rich and diverse culture by representing many West African nations: Angola, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Cameroon, and Senegal. Although it was the intent of his European captor to socialize the African to ways that he would have them behave, the ways of enslavement, isolation, and statements that declare the African to be absent of culture and animalistic in nature, so far from the truth. By 1740, 2/3 of South Carolina's settlers were African, nearly 40,000 people. It was here where the African created ways to incorporate and maintain their African culture, customs, beliefs, and rites of passage. Here was the marriage of the two cultures, which began to merge, winding as a grapevine, entangling upon a fence or a live oak. This brought forth a fruit of passion, Gullah. The rice fields are now empty and cotton is keen no longer. Indigo now appears as a faded blue. But there still remains the rhythm of work songs that are sung with such intensity, one can clearly visualize the workman's hoe as he or she breaks ground on a South Carolina heated day. Tunes that marked these ancestral tribes, such as Mandinga, Gola, Yoruba, Abu, Fanti, that influenced the present day plantation melodies. Listen. Oh Lord, me is your humble servant, and I come, Lord, rich on this clean space. Oh my good Lord, I ask you for come by ya. Come by ya, Lord. Show me the way. Show me the way, Lord. Enter the chariot and carry me home. Local gathering such
That's all I had to say with that. The only other thing said to me was that old deacon started singing down by the riverside. And so I said, praise the Lord.
I told you about the rich tradition of storytelling and how they weave something around maybe a slight fact of truth, but they make it so interesting, and it usually ends with a wise saying or some kind of moral to it, or something, or some punchline. And that's a typical storytelling style of Gullah language. Questions?
The accent and the words always sound very similar to Louisiana.
It will. As a matter of fact, it's the same origin, the same language origin. Actually, today you will go to if you go to the islands, they may sound like West Indians talking because the same historical origins and the overlay, as I mentioned, of African language imported onto English. As a matter of fact, some students of mine did some research, and they were doing their research separately, and one was doing research on the origin of Haitian Creole, and the other one on Afro-Cuban Spanish. And the Afro-Portuguese that is spoken in the Salvador, the province of Brazil. And what they found was that it sounded, some of the features of all of these languages were the same, because it was an overlay of African language onto whatever language they were speaking. So the same kind of what we think of as errors or the features of the language in English was the exact same overlay in Spanish or Portuguese or French and Haitian Creole. So you will find that they sound very much similar, and particular in cadence and in syllabification of the language and the rate and just the way that the language is spoken. So you'll often think that they sound like they're West Indian. Yes.
Is there still a discussion about the political correctness of the word Geeche?
Actually, we have asked that question, and depends on whom you ask. Some people, the Gullah people will claim the word Geeche, some will, some won't. But you're right, you're absolutely right. As I was growing up in North Carolina, to be called Geeche was an insult. Okay, and Geeche usually meant someone from South Carolina, and they did not accept the term very easily. So again, it depends on who you're talking to.
I should have consulted you before I put it on our flyer.
Oh, it's okay, because actually it is.
Okay.
It's not an insult, because usually you were absolutely right to do that, because you'll see that many times in the literature, Gullah/Geeche, because many people will know what Geeche is, but they may not recognize the term Gullah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Oh, I believe you can go online and order this. As I was doing some research for this, I found this, and if not, Google Marlena Smalls. I know her, and ask her if she will, have some available for you. Marlena Smalls.
Have you heard of a place called Olatunji Village? Is that in the Gullah area?
I have not heard of that. It might be, but I have not been to every
far
island.
from Charleston, but I don't remember how far exactly, and I just know it was a place that they had, again, done some preservations of traditions and were really living more of, shall we say, in the not ancestral, but, ancient times more than nowadays.
Okay, so that would be typical. And I have not been to to each one of the islands, but I've visited several. And my biggest the one time that I went was I really wanted to hear some deep Gullah, in the language. And when we went to the school, the kids were speaking just like me. So, that was kind of evidence to me that the language is dying out. With each new generation, people forget how to speak it. And today's children are not learning Gullah language at all. I did want to, before I closed, I wanted to show you some of the things that I brought along. You can see the art, but this is actually the New Testament of the Bible, which has been translated into Gullah. If you want to try your hand at some dialect reading, I'll try to do a little bit for you, but this is something that I bought on one of my excursions there, and I love it. There are several books as well. This one is called Gullah for Una, meaning Gullah for you, and it actually gives some of the linguistic expressions that you may hear in the islands, and it translates that to English. Well, if you'd like me to, I'll try to stumble through the Lord's Prayer in Gullah. I'm not Gullah. I don't have a Gullah accent at all, but as a linguist, I'll try to muddle through. Okay, so this is called the Lord's Prayer. The Lord thy be me shepherd, and it's not really the Lord's Prayer, it's the 23rd Psalm. The Lord thy be me shepherd, and I'd have everything I wanted to need. He'd have making me for the rest in green field. He'd have leading me to the water were fresh and good for drink. He'd have take my soul and put it back where it's supposed to be. He'd have leadeth me along the right path for ye name's sake. For I do walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I ain't going to fear no evil out, 'cause y'all done be right alongside me. Your rod and staff done protect me. You prepare enough victuals for me, where all my enemies can see 'em. Unite my head with oil and fill up me cup until it running over. For truth, goodness, and mercy done follow me long time, and I going to stay in the house of the Lord forever. That's my best rendition. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your attention.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yeah.